Hi there, welcome back, or welcome for the very first time. You're safe now. This is your time to rest. Let go of your day. Let your breath slow down and your thoughts float gently away. Tonight I'll be reading you a fairy tale, an old story wrapped in moonlight and carried on a quiet breeze just for you. So snuggle in, get cozy, and let the soft rhythm of the story guide you into dreams. Let's begin.
Peredur, the son of Evaruk. Earl Evaruk owned the earldom of the north, and he had 7 sons. And Evaruk maintained himself not so much by his own possessions as by attending tournaments and wars and combats. And, as it often befalls those who join in encounters and wars, he was slain, and 6 of his sons likewise. Now the name of his 7th son was Peredur, and he was the youngest of them. And he was not of an age to go to wars and encounters, otherwise he might have been slain as his father and brothers. His mother was a scheming and thoughtful woman, and she was very solicitous concerning this her only son and his possessions. So she took counsel with herself to leave the inhabited country and to flee to the deserts and the unfrequented wildernesses. And she permitted none to bear her company thither but women and boys and spiritless men, who were both unaccustomed and unequal to war and fighting. And none dared to bring either horses or arms where her son was, lest he should set his mind upon them. And the youth went daily to divert himself in the forest by flinging sticks and staves. And one day he saw his mother's flock of goats, and near the goats 2 hinds were standing. He marvelled greatly that these 2 should be without horns, while the others had them, and he thought they had long run wild, and on that account had lost their horns. By activity and swiftness of foot he drove the hinds and the goats together into the house where there was for the goats at the extremity of the forest. Then Peredur returned to his mother. "Ah, mother," he said, "a marvellous thing I have seen in the wood. 2 of thy goats have run wild and lost their horns, through their having been so long missing in the wood. And no man had ever more trouble than I to drive them in." Then they all arose and went to see, and when they beheld the hinds they were greatly astonished. And one day they saw 3 knights coming along the horse road on the borders of the forest, and 3 knights were Gwalchmai, the son of Gwyar, and Genier, and Gwistil, and Owain, the son of Urien. And Owain kept on the track of the knight who had divided the apples in Arthur's court, of whom they were in pursuit. "Mother," said Peredur, "what are those yonder?" "They are angels, my son," said she. "By my faith," said Peredur, "I will go and become an angel with them." And Peredur went to the road and met them. "Tell me, good soul," said Owain, "sawest thou a knight pass this way, either today or yesterday?" "I know not," answered he, "what a knight is." "Such as one I am," said Owain. "If thou wilt tell me what I ask thee, I will tell thee that which thou askest me." "Gladly will I do so," replied Owain. "What is this?" demanded Peredur concerning the saddle. "It is a saddle," said Owain. Then he asked about all the accoutrements of which he saw upon the men and the horses, and the arms, and what they were for, and how they were used. And Owain shewed him all these things fully, and told him of what use was made of them. Go forward, said Peredur, for I saw such one as thou inquirest for, and I will follow thee. Then Peredur returned to his mother and her company, and said to her, Mother, those were not angels, but honourable knights. And then his mother swooned away, and Peredur went to the place where they kept the horses that carried firewood, and that brought meat and drink from the inhabited country to the desert. And then he took a bony piebald horse, which seemed to him the strongest of them, and pressed a pack into the form of a saddle with twisted twigs he imitated the trappings which he had seen upon the horses. And when Peredur came again to his mother, the Countess had recovered from her swoon. My son, said she, desirest thou to ride forth? Yes, with thy leave, said he. Wait then, that I may counsel thee before thou goest. Willingly, he answered, speak quickly. Go forward, said she, to the court of Arthur, where there are the best and the boldest and the most bountiful of men, and wherever thou seest a church, repeat there thy paternoster unto it. And if thou see meat and drink, and hast need of them, and none have the kindness or courtesy to give them to thee, take them thyself. If thou hear an outcry, proceed towards it, especially if it be the outcry of a woman. And if thou see a fair jewel, possess thyself of it, and give it to another, for thus thou shalt obtain praise. If thou see a fair woman, pay thy court to her, and whether she will or no, for thus thou wilt render thyself a better and more esteemed man than thou wast before. After this discourse, Peredur mounted the horse, and taking a handful of sharp, pointed forks in his hand, he rode forth. And he journeyed 2 days and 2 nights in the woody wildernesses, and in the desert places, without food and without drink. And when he came to a vast wild wood, and far within the wood he saw a fair even glade, and in the glade he saw a tent, seeming to him to be a church, so he repeated his paternoster to the tent. And he went towards it, and the front door of the tent was open, and a golden chair was near the door, and on the chair sat a lovely auburn-haired maiden, with a golden frontlet on her forehead, and sparkling stones in the frontlet, and with a large gold ring on her hand. Peredur dismounted and entered the tent, and the maiden was glad at his coming, and bade him welcome. At the entrance of the tent he saw food, and 2 flasks full of wine, 2 loaves of fine wheaten flour, and collops of the flesh of the wild boar. My mother told me, said Peredur, wheresoever I saw meat and drink to take it. Take the meat and welcome, chieftain. So Peredur took half of the meat and the liquor himself, and left the rest to the maiden. And when Peredur had finished eating, he bent upon his knee before the maiden. My mother, said he, told me ever, wheresoever I saw a fair jewel, to take it. Do so, my soul, said she. So Peredur took the ring, and mounted his horse, and proceeded on the journey. After this, behold, the knight came, to whom the tent belonged, and he was the lord of the glade. And he saw the track of the horse, and said to the maiden, Tell me, who has been here since I departed? A man, said she, of wonderful demeanour, and she described to him what Peredur's appearance and conduct had been. Tell me, said he, did he offer thee any wrong? No, answered the maiden, and by my faith he harmed me not. By my faith, I do not believe thee, and until I can meet with him and revenge the insult he has done me, and wreak my vengeance upon him, thou shalt not remain 2 nights in the same house. And the knight arose and set forth to seek Peredur. Meanwhile Peredur journeyed on towards King Arthur's court, and before he reached it another knight had been there, who gave a ring of thick gold at the gate for holding his horse, and went into the hall where Arthur and his household and Gwenhwyvar and her maidens were assembled. And the page of the chamber was serving Gwenhwyvar with a golden goblet. Then the knight dashed the liquor that was therein upon her face and upon her stomacher, and gave her a violent blow on the face, and said, If any have the boldness to dispute this goblet with me, and to avenge the insult to Gwenhwyvar, let him follow me to the meadow, and there I will await him. So the knight took his horse and rode to the meadow, and all the household hung their heads, lest any of them should be requested to go and avenge the insult to Gwenhwyvar. For it seemed to them that no one would have ventured on so daring an outrage unless he possessed such powers, through magic or charms, that none could be able to take vengeance upon him. Then, behold, Peredur entered the hall, upon the bony piebald horse, with the uncouth trappings upon it, and in this way he traversed the whole length of the hall. In the centre of the hall stood Kai. Tell me, tall man, said Peredur, is that Arthur yonder? What wouldst thou have with Arthur? asked Kai. My mother told me to go to Arthur and receive the honour of knighthood. By my faith, said he, thou art all too meanly equipped with a horse and with arms. Therefore he was perceived by all the household, and they threw sticks at him. And then behold, a dwarf came forward. He had already been a year at Arthur's court, both he and a female dwarf. They had craved harbourage of Arthur, and obtained it, and during the whole year neither of them had spoken a single word to any one. When the dwarf beheld Peredur, Ha ha, said he, the welcome of heaven be unto thee, goodly Peredur, son of Evruk, and the chief of warriors and the flower of knighthood. Truly, said Kai, thou art ill-mannered to remain a year mute at Arthur's court with choice of society, and now before the face of Arthur and all his household to call out and declare such a man as this the chief of warriors and the flower of knighthood. He gave him such a box on the ear that he fell senseless to the ground. Then exclaimed the female dwarf, Ha ha, goodly Peredur, son of Evruk, the welcome of heaven be unto thee, flower of knights, and the light of chivalry. Of a truth, maiden, said Kai, thou art ill-bred to remain mute a year at the court of Arthur, and then to speak as thou dost of such a man as this. And Kai kicked her with his foot so that she fell to the ground, senseless. Tall man, said Peredur, show me which is Arthur. Hold thy peace, said Kai, and go after the knight who went hence to the meadow, and take from him the goblet, and overthrow him, and possess thyself of his horse and arms, and when thou shalt receive the order of knighthood. I will do so, tall man, said Peredur. So he turned his horse's head to the meadow, and when he came there the knight was riding up and down, proud of his strength and valour, and noble mien. Tell me, said the knight, didst thou see anyone coming after me from the court? The tall man that was back there, said he, desired me to come and overthrow thee, and take from thee the goblet and thy horse and armour for myself. Silence, said the knight. Go back to the court and tell Arthur from me either to come himself or send some other to fight me, and unless he do so quickly, I will not wait for him. By my faith, said Peredur, choose you whether it shall be willingly or unwillingly, but I will have the horse and the arms and the goblet. And upon this the knight ran at him furiously, and struck him a violent blow with the shaft of his spear between the neck and the shoulder. Ha ha, lad, said Peredur, my mother's servants were not used to play with me in this wise, therefore thus will I play with thee. And thereupon he struck him with a sharp and pointed fork, and it hit him in the eye and came out the back of his head, so that he instantly fell down, lifeless. Verily, said Owain the son of Urien to Kai, thou wert ill-advised when thou didst send that madman after the knight, for one of two things must befall him. He must either be overthrown or slain. If he's overthrown by the knight, he will be counted by him to be an honourable person of the court, and an eternal disgrace will it be to Arthur and his warriors. And if he is slain, the disgrace will be the same. Moreover, his sin will be upon him, therefore I will go to see what has befallen him. So Owain went to the meadow, and he found Peredur dragging the man about. What art thou doing thus? Said Owain. This iron coat, said Peredur, will never come off him, not by my efforts at any rate. And Owain unfastened his armour and his clothes. Here, my good soul, said he, is a horse and an armour better than thine. Take them joyfully, and come with me to Arthur to receive the order of knighthood, for dost thou merit it. May I never show my face again if I go, said Peredur. But take thou the goblet to Gwenhwyvar, and tell Arthur that wherever I am, I will be his vassal, and will do him what profit and service I am able, and I will not come back to his court until I have encountered the tall man that is there, to avenge the injury he did to the dwarf and dwarfess. And Owain went back to the court and related these things to Arthur and Gwenhwyvar and all the household. And Peredur rode forward, and as he proceeded, behold, a knight met him. Whence comest thou? Said the knight. I come from Arthur's court, said Peredur. Art thou one of his men? Asked he. Yes, by my faith, he answered. A good service truly is that of Arthur. Wherefore sayest thou so? Said Peredur. I will tell thee, said he. I have always been Arthur's enemy, and all such of his men that I have ever encountered I have slain. And without further parlance they fought, and it was not long before Peredur brought him to the ground, over his horse's crupper. Then the knight besought mercy. Mercy thou shalt have, said Peredur, if thou wilt make an oath to me, and thou wilt go to Arthur's court and tell him that it was I that overthrew thee, for the honour of his service, and say that I will never come to the court until I have avenged the insult offered to the dwarf and dwarfess. The knight pledged his faith to this, and proceeded to the court of Arthur, and said as he had promised, and conveyed the threat to Kai. And Peredur rode forward, and within that week he encountered 16 knights, and overthrew them all shamefully, and they all went to Arthur's court, taking with them the same message which the first knight had conveyed from Peredur, and the same threat which he had sent to Kai. And thereupon Kai was reproved by Arthur, and Kai was greatly grieved thereat. And Peredur rode forward, and he came to a vast desert and wood, on the confines of which was a lake, and on the other side was a fair castle, and on the border of the lake he saw a venerable hoary-headed man, sitting upon a velvet cushion, and having a garment of velvet upon him. His attendants were fishing in the lake. When the hoary-headed man beheld Peredur approaching, he arose and went to the castle. The old man was lame, so Peredur rode to the palace and found the door open, and he entered the hall. And there was the hoary-headed man sitting on a cushion with a large blazing fire burning before him. And the household and the company arose to meet Peredur and disarrayed him. And when the man asked the youth to sit on the cushion, they sat down and conversed together. When it was time, the tables were laid, and they went to meat. And when they had finished their meal, the man inquired of Peredur if he knew well how to fight with the sword. I know not, said Peredur, but were I to be taught, doubtless I should. Whoever can play well with the cudgel and shield will also be able to fight with a sword. The man had 2 sons. One had yellow hair, and the other auburn. "Arise, youth," said he, "and play with the cudgel and shield." And so did they. "Tell me, my soul," said the man, "which of the youths thinkest thou plays best?" "I think," said Peredur, "that the yellow-haired youth could draw blood from the other, if he chose." "Arise thou, my life, and take the cudgel and shield from the hand of the youth with the auburn hair, and draw blood from the yellow-haired youth, if thou canst." So Peredur arose and went to play with the yellow-haired youth, and he lifted up his arm and struck him such a mighty blow that his brow fell over his eye, and the blood flowed forth. "Ah, my life," said the man, "come now and sit down, for thou wilt be the best fighter with the sword of any on this island, and I am thy uncle, thy mother's brother, and with me thou shalt remain a space, in order to learn the manners and customs of different countries, and courtesy, gentleness, and noble bearing. Leave then the habits and the discourse of thy mother, and I will be thy teacher, and I will raise thee to the rank of knight from this time forward. If thou seest aught to cause thee wonder, ask not the meaning of it. If no one else has the courtesy to inform thee, the reproach will not fall upon thee, but upon me, that I am thy teacher." And they had abundance of honour and service. And when it was time, they went to sleep. At the break of day, Peredur arose and took his horse, and with his uncle's permission he rode forth. And he came to a vast desert wood, and at the further end of the wood was a meadow, and on the side of the meadow he saw a large castle, and thitherward Peredur bent his way, and found the gate open, so he proceeded into the hall, and he beheld a stately hoary-headed man sitting on one side of the hall, with many pages around him, who arose to receive and honour Peredur. And they placed him by the side of the owner of the palace. Then they discoursed together, and when it was time to eat, they caused Peredur to sit beside the nobleman during the repast. When they had eaten and drank as much as they desired, the nobleman asked Peredur whether he could fight with a sword. "Were I to receive instructions," said Peredur, "I think I could." Now there was on the floor of the hall a huge staple, as large as a warrior could grasp. "Take yonder sword," said the man to Peredur, "and strike the iron staple." So Peredur arose and struck the staple, so that he cut it in two, and the sword broke into 2 parts also. "Place the 2 parts together, and reunite them," said he. And Peredur placed them together, and they became entire as they were before. And a second time he struck upon the staple, so that both it and the sword broke in 2, and as before they reunited. And the third time he gave a like blow, and placed the broken parts together, and neither the staple nor the sword would unite as before. "Youth," said the nobleman, "come now and sit down, and my blessing be upon thee. Thou fightest best with the sword of any man in the kingdom. Thou hast arrived at 2/3 of thy strength, and the other third hast thou not yet obtained, and when thou attainest thy full power, none will be able to contend with thee. I am thy uncle, thy mother's brother, and I am brother to the man in whose house thou wast last night." Then Peredur and his uncle discoursed together, and he beheld 2 youths enter the hall, and proceeded up to the chamber, bearing a spear of mighty size, and with 3 streams of blood flowing from the point to the ground. And when all the company saw this, they began wailing and lamenting. But for all that, the man did not break off his discourse with Peredur, and he did not tell Peredur the meaning of what he saw. He forbore to ask him concerning it, and when the clamour had a little subsided, behold, 2 maidens entered, with a large salver between them, in which was a man's head, and surrounded by a profusion of blood. And thereupon the company of the court made so great an outcry that it was irksome to be in the same hall with them. But at length they were silent, and when it time was that they should sleep, Peredur was brought into a fair chamber. The next day, with his uncle's permission, he rode forth, and he came to a wood, and far within the wood he heard a loud cry, and saw a beautiful woman with auburn hair, and a horse with a saddle upon it, standing near her, and a corpse by her side. When she strove to place the corpse upon the horse, it fell to the ground, and thereupon she made a great lamentation. "Tell me, sister," said Peredur, "wherefore art thou bewailing?" Oh, accursed Peredur, little pity has my ill fortune ever met with from thee. "Wherefore," said Peredur, "am I accursed?" "Because thou wast the cause of thy mother's death, and when thou didst ride forth against her will, anguish seized upon her heart so that she died, and therefore art thou accursed. And the dwarf and dwarfess that thou sawest in Arthur's court were the dwarfs of thy father and mother, and I am thy foster sister, and this was my wedded husband, and he was slain by the knight that is in the glade of this wood. And do not thou go near him, lest you should be slain by him likewise. My sister, thou dost reproach me wrongfully, through my having so long remained amongst you. I shall scarcely vanquish him, and had I continued longer, it would, indeed, be difficult for me to succeed. Cease therefore thy lamenting, for it is of no avail. I will bury the body, and then I will go in quest of the knight, and see if I can do vengeance upon him." And when he had buried the body, and went to the place where the knight was, and found him riding proudly along the glade, and he inquired of Peredur whence he came. "I come from Arthur's court." "And art thou one of Arthur's men?" "Yes, by my faith." "A profitable alliance, truly, is that of Arthur." And without further parlance they encountered one another, and immediately Peredur overthrew the knight, and he besought mercy of Peredur. "Mercy shalt thou have," said he, "upon these terms, that thou take this woman in marriage, and do her all the honour and reverence in thy power, saving thou hast, without cause, slain her wedded husband, and that thou go to Arthur's court, and shew him that it was I that overthrew thee, to do him honour and service, and thou tell him that I will never come to his court again, until I have met with the tall man that is there, and to take vengeance upon him for his insult to the dwarf and dwarfess." And then he took the knight's assurance that he would perform all of this. Then the knight provided the lady with a horse and garments that were suitable for her, and took her with him to Arthur's court, where he told Arthur all that had occurred, and gave the defiance to Kai. And Arthur and his household reproved Kai for having driven such a youth as Peredur from his court. Said Owain the son of Urien, "This youth will never come into the court until Kai has gone forth from it." "By my faith," said Arthur, "I will search all the deserts in the island of Britain until I find Peredur, and then let him and his adversary do their utmost to each other." Then Peredur rode forward, and he came to a desert wood, and there he saw not the track either of men or animals, and where there was nothing but bushes and weeds. And at the upper end of the wood he saw a vast castle, and wherein were many strong towers. And when he came near the gate, he found the weeds taller than he had done elsewhere. And he struck the gate with the shaft of his lance, and thereupon, behold, a lean auburn-haired youth came to the opening in the battlements. Choose thou, chieftain, said he, whether I shall open the gate unto thee, or shall I announce thee unto those who are chief that thou art at the gateway? Say that I am here, said Peredur, and if it is desired I should enter, I will go in. And the youth came back and opened the gate for Peredur, and when he went into the hall he beheld 18 youths, lean and red-faced, of the same height and same aspect, and of the same dress, and of the same age, as the one who had opened the gate for him. They were well skilled in courtesy and service, and they disarrayed him. Then he sat down to discourse. Thereupon, behold, 5 maidens came from the chamber into the hall, and Peredur was certain he had never seen another of so fair an aspect as the chief of the maidens. She had old garments of satin upon her, which had once been handsome, but by then were so tattered that her skin could be seen through it. And whiter was her skin than the bloom of a crystal, and her hair and her 2 eyebrows were blacker than jet, and on her cheeks were 2 red spots, redder than whatever is reddest. And the maidens welcomed Peredur, and the chief maiden put her arms around his neck, and made him sit down beside her. Not long after this, he saw 2 nuns enter, and a flask of wine was borne by one, and 6 loaves of white bread by the other. Lady, said he, heaven is witness that there is not so much of food and liquor as this left in yonder convent this night. Then they went to meat, and Peredur observed that the maiden wished to give more of the food and liquor to him than any of the others. My sister, said Peredur, I will share out the food and the liquor. Not so, my soul, said she, by my faith I will. So Peredur took the bread and gave an equal portion to each alike, as well as a cupful of the liquor. And when it was time for them to sleep, a chamber was prepared for Peredur, and he went to rest. Behold, sister, said the youths to the fairest and most exalted of the maidens, we have counsel for thee. What may it be? She inquired. Go to the youth that is in the upper chamber, and offer to become his wife, or the lady of his love, if it seem well to him. That were indeed unfitting, said she. Hitherto I have not been the lady love of any knight, and make him such an offer before I am wooed by him, that truly can I not do. By our confession to heaven, unless thou actest thus, we will leave thee here to thy enemies, and do as they will with thee. And through fear of this, the maiden went forth, and shedding tears, she proceeded to the chamber, and with the noise of the door opening, Peredur awoke, and the maiden was weeping and lamenting. Tell me, sister, said Peredur, wherefore dost thou weep? I will tell thee, lord, said she. My father possessed these dominions as their chief, and this palace was his, and with it he held the best earldom in the kingdom. And then the son of another earl sought me of my father, and I was not willing to be given unto him, and my father would not give me against my will, either to him or any earl in the world. And my father had no child except myself. After my father's death, these dominions came into my own hands, and then was I less willing to accept him than before. So he made war upon me, and conquered all my possessions except this one house. And through the valor of the men whom thou hast seen, who are my foster brothers, and the strength of the house, it can never be taken while food and drink remain. And now our provisions are exhausted. But as thou hast seen, we have been fed by the nuns, to whom the country is free, and at length they are also without supply of food and liquor. and at no later date than tomorrow the Earl will come against this palace with all his forces, and if I fall into his power, my fate will be no better than to be given over to the grooms of his horses. Therefore, Lord, I come to offer to place myself in thy hands, that thou mayest succour me, either by taking me hence or defending me here, whichever thou may seem best unto thee. Go, my sister, said he, and sleep, nor will I depart from thee until I do which thou requirest, or prove whether I can assist thee or not. The maiden went again to rest, and in the next morning she came to Peredur and saluted him. Heaven prosper thee, my soul. What tidings dost thou bring? None other than the Earl and all his forces have alighted at the gate, and never have I beheld any place so covered with tents and thronged with knights challenging others to combat. Truly, said Peredur, let my horse be made ready. So his horse was accoutred, and he rose forth and sallied forth to the meadow, and there was a knight riding proudly along the meadow, having raised the signal for battle. And they encountered, and Peredur threw the knight over his horse's crupper to the ground. And at the close of the day, one of the chief knights came to fight with him, and he overthrew him also, so that he besought his mercy. Who art thou? Said Peredur, said he. I am the master of the household to the Earl. And how much of the Countess's possession are in thy power? A third part, verily, answered he. Then, said Peredur, restore to her the third of her possessions in full, and all the profit thou hast made by them, and bring meat and drink for 100 men, with their horses and arms, to her court this night, and thou shalt remain her captive, unless she wish to take thy life. And this he did forthwith, and that night the maiden was right joyful, and they fared plenteously. And the third day Peredur rode forth to the meadow, and he vanquished more that day than on either of the preceding. And at the close of the day an earl came to him, and counted him, and he overthrew him, and besought his mercy. Who art thou? Said Peredur. I am the earl, said he. I will not conceal it from thee. Verily, said Peredur, thou shalt restore the whole of the maiden's earldom, and shalt give her thy own earldom in addition thereto, and meat and drink for 300 men, and their horses and arms, and thou thyself shalt remain in her power. Thus it was fulfilled, and Peredur tarried 3 weeks in the country, causing tribute and obedience to be paid to the maiden, and the government to be placed in her hands. With thy leave, said Peredur, I will go hence. Verily, my brother, desirest thou this? Yes, by my faith, and had it not been for the love of thee, I should not have been here thus long. My soul, said she, who art thou? I am Peredur, the son of Evaruk, from the north, and if thou art ever in danger or trouble, acquaint with me therewith, and if I can, I will protect thee. So Peredur rode forth, and far thence met him a lady mounted on a horse that was lean and covered with sweat. She saluted the youth. Whence comest thou, my sister? And then she told him, and the cause of her journey. Now she was the wife of the lord of the glade. Behold, said he, I am the knight through whom thou art in trouble, and he shall repent it, he who has treated thee thus. Thereupon, behold, the knight rode up, and he inquired of Peredur if he had seen a knight such as he was seeking. Hold thy peace, said Peredur, I am he who thou seekest, and by my faith thou deservest ill of thy household for thy treatment of the maiden, for she is innocent concerning me. So they encountered, and they were not long in combat ere Peredur overthrew the knight, and he besought his mercy. Mercy thou shalt have, said Peredur, so thou wilt return by the way thou camest, and declare that thou holdest the maiden innocent, and so that thou wilt acknowledge unto her the reverse thou hast sustained at my hands. And the knight plighted him his faith thereto. Then Peredur rode forward, and above him he beheld a castle, and thitherward he went, and he struck upon the gate with his lance. And then, behold, a comely auburn-haired youth opened the gate. He had the stature of a warrior, and the years of a boy. And when Peredur came into the hall, there was a tall, stately lady sitting in a chair, with many handmaidens around her. And the lady rejoiced at his coming. When it was time to eat, they went to meat, and after their repast was finished, she said, "It were well for thee, chieftain, to go elsewhere to sleep." "Wherefore can I not sleep here?" said Peredur. "9 sorceresses are here, my soul, of the sorceresses of Gloucester, and their father and mother are with them, and unless we make our escape before daybreak, we shall be slain. Already they have conquered and laid waste to all the country, except this one dwelling." "Behold," said Peredur, "I will remain here tonight, and if you are in trouble, I will do to you what service I can, but harm shall you not receive from me." So they went to rest, and with the break of day Peredur heard a dreadful outcry. He hastily arose and went with his vest and doublet, with his sword about his neck, and saw a sorceress overtake one of the watch, who cried out violently. Peredur attacked the sorceress, and struck her upon the head with his sword, so he flattened her helmet and her headpiece like a dish upon her head. "Thy mercy, goodly Peredur, son of Evaruk, and the mercy of heaven." "How knowest thou, hag, that I am Peredur?" he said. "By destiny, and the foreknowledge that I should suffer harm from thee. And thou shalt take a horse and armour of me, and with me thou shalt go to learn chivalry and the good use of thy arms." Said Peredur, "Thou shalt have mercy if thou pledge thy faith that thou wilt never more enter the dominions of the Countess." And Peredur took surety of this, and with the permission of the Countess, he set forth with the sorceress to the palace of the sorceresses, and there he remained for 3 weeks. Then he made the choice of a horse and arms, and went on his way. In the evening he entered a valley, and at the head of the valley he came to a hermit's cell. The hermit welcomed him gladly, and there he spent the night. And in the morning he arose, and when he went forth, behold, a shower of snow had fallen the night before, and a hawk had killed a wild fowl in front of the cell. And the noise of the horse scared the hawk away, and a raven alighted upon the bird. And Peredur stood and compared the blackness of the raven, the whiteness of the snow, and the redness of the blood, to the hair of the lady that best he loved, which was blacker than jet, and her skin, which was whiter than the snow, and the 2 red spots upon her cheeks, which were redder than the blood upon the snow appeared to be. Now Arthur and his household were in search of Peredur. "Know ye," said Arthur, "who is the knight with the long spear that stands by the brook up yonder?" "Lord," said one of them, "I will go and learn who he is." So the youth came to the place where Peredur was, and asked him what he did thus, and who he was. And from the intensity with which he thought upon the lady whom best he loved, he gave no answer. Then the youth thrust at Peredur with his lance, and Peredur turned upon him, and struck him over the horse's crupper to the ground. And after this 24 youths came to him, and he did not answer one more than another, but each gave the same reception to all, bringing them with a single thrust to the ground. Then came Kai, and spoke to Peredur rudely and angrily, and Peredur took him with his lance under the jaw, cast him from him with a thrust, so that he broke his arm and his shoulder blade. and he rode over him 21 times. And while he lay thus, stunned, and with the violence of the pain that he had suffered, his horse returned back at a wild and prancing pace. And when the household saw the horse come back without a rider, they rode forth in haste to the place where the encounter had been. And when they first came there, they thought that Kai was slain. But they found that if he had a skilful physician, he yet might live. And Peredur moved not from his meditation on seeing the concourse that was around Kai. And Kai was brought to Arthur's tent, and Arthur caused skilful physicians to come to him. And Arthur was grieved that Kai had met with this reverse, for he loved him greatly. Then said Gwalchmai, it is not fitting that any should disturb an honourable knight from his thought unadvisedly, for either he is pondering some damage he has sustained, or he is thinking of the lady whom he loves best. And though such ill-advised proceedings, perchance this misadventure has befallen him who last met him. And if it seemed well to thee, Lord, I will go and see if this knight has changed from his thought, and if he has, I will ask him to courteously come and visit thee. Then Kai was wrath and spoke angry and spiteful words. Gwalchmai, said he, I know that thou wilt bring him because he is fatigued. Little praise and honour, nevertheless, wilt thou have from vanquishing a weary knight who is tired with fighting. Yet thus hast thou gained from advantage over many, and while thy speech and thy soft words last, a coat of thin linen with armour sufficient for thee, and thou wilt not need to break either lance nor sword in fighting with the knight in the state he is in. Then said Gwalchmai to Kai, thou mightest use more pleasant words, wert thou so minded, and it behoves thee not upon me to wreak thy wrath and thy displeasure. Methinks I shall bring the knight hither with me without breaking either my arm or my shoulder. Gwalchmai. Then said Arthur to Gwalchmai, thou speakest like a wise and prudent man. Go and take enough armour about thee, and choose thy horse. And Gwalchmai accoutred himself, and rode forth hastily to the place where Peredur was. Peredur was resting on the shaft of his spear, pondering the same thought, and Gwalchmai came to him without any sign of hostility, and said to him, if I thought it would be agreeable to thee as it would be to me, I would converse with thee. I have also a message from Arthur unto thee, to pray thee to come and visit him. And 2 men have been before on this errand. That is true, said Peredur, and uncourteously they came. They attacked me, and I was annoyed thereat, for it was not pleasing to me to be drawn from the thought I was in, for I was thinking of the lady whom best I love, and thus she was brought to my mind. I was looking upon the snow, and upon the raven, and upon the drops of the blood of the bird that the hawk had killed upon the snow, and I bethought me of her whiteness like it was of the snow, and the blackness of her hair and eyebrows like that of a raven, and the 2 red spots upon her cheeks like the drops of blood. Said Gwalchmai, this is not an ungentle thought, and I should marvel at it if it were pleasant to thee to be drawn from it. Tell me, said Peredur, is Kai in Arthur's court? He is, said he, and behold he is the knight that fought with thee last, and it would have been better for him had he not come, for his arm and his shoulder blade were broken in the fall which he had by thy spear. Verily, said Peredur, I am not sorry to have thus begun to avenge the insult of the dwarf and dwarfess upon him. Then Gwalchmai marvelled to hear him speak of the dwarf and dwarfess, and as he approached him and threw his arms about his neck, asked him what was his name. Peredur, son of Evaruk, am I called, said he, and thou? Who art thou? I am called Gwalchmai, he replied, and I am right glad to meet with thee, said Peredur, for in every country I have been, I have heard of thy fame and prowess, and uprightness. I solicit thy fellowship. Thou shalt have it by my faith, and grant thee mine, said he. Gladly will I do so, answered Peredur. And this is where we pause for part one of Peredur, the son
The
of
story
Evan.
has ended, but your dreams are just beginning. Let them carry you gently through stars and silence and soft wonder. Thank you for letting me read to you. I'll be here again whenever you need a quiet voice and a gentle tale. Sleep well, sleep deep, and good night, dear dreamer. Breuddwydion melys, dear dreamer, sweet dreams.